Hey Mountaineer fans, and welcome into SVC Sports Weekly, hosted by Nosek and Gage. Gage, we are in that kind of in-between time between fall and winter sports right now, but that doesn't mean that we don't have lots to talk about. So let's jump right into it with women's volleyball. Three-time NECC champions taking down Daniel Webster College in the semifinals last weekend before defeating Regis. Both of those matches by 3-0 margins. Kind of mirroring last year, we beat Daniel Webster, we beat Regis. We're hoisting that trophy once again. It's actually a traveling cup right now, really neat. And we actually lined up all of the previous plaques for the ladies to take pictures in front of, and it was just a great atmosphere again. And we're going back to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, my first thought when it comes to that tournament was how exciting. You know, the entire thing, even the other semifinal match on Friday night was exciting. But like you said, our women played tremendous, 2-3-0 victories in a semifinal and a championship game, which just, they came ready to play. Like, I watched that team on Friday night and I was like, these guys are really, really good today. And then on Saturday, Regis got off to a quick start. I think it was like 6-1 or something. And we came right back, and after we tied it from there on out, you know, we took over and dominated that match and won 3-0 again. And it was a really great atmosphere in the Mountaineer Athletic Center, and just an overall good weekend for Southern Vermont college sports.
Yeah, and I think you might have touched on it real quickly. It seemed like during that weekend that the team was clicking to the best of its ability and the best that we've seen it this year, at least, you know, in the matches that we've seen on the home court and online, you know, in the few that have been broadcast. And that's perfect. That's exactly what you want to be doing is, despite the Williams 3-0 loss they had the week before the conference finals, they were able to ignore that, put that away, and still work on what they needed to in order to provide a quality product and be able to go out and play some of their best volleyball, both on the offensive and defensive ends. You know, they weren't sterling and hitting zero errors, but they limited the errors to the point where they didn't put themselves in a hole and allow Regis's 5-6 point leads to really grow into something that they couldn't come back from.
Absolutely, and you're exactly right. You know, every coach wants their team to be playing the best of their sport at the end of the season, and they did that on Friday and Saturday night. And like you said, at the end of the season altogether, you know, we had talked, all right, well, they're going to face this team who's fourth, well, then they're going to face this team who's second, then they're going to face this team. You know, they had to play good volleyball, and they stepped up and did play good volleyball. So it's, you know, but overall, congratulations to this team. Just continually improved all year long, and to bring home a third NECC championship is a feat that not a lot of colleges get to lay claim to.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, and you can go into the Mountaineer room where we have the trophy displays, and all three of those are lined up right next to each other right now, and it's really cool, and it's really, you know, nice to see both as someone who works here and as an alum of the college. You know, talking with some of my friends that graduated back in 2010, before this kind of volleyball powerhouse came to be, and we still have a pride in that and being able to say that, you know, our college has won 3 championships in a row, and it's really cool. And I think the ladies have really enjoyed being able to have that kind of success, and especially you look at the groups that have come through. I think this year's team has maybe a couple, if that, players who are on the first championship winning team. So you had that turnaround, but still been able to keep the success, and I think that has also rubbed off on the rest of the conference. Someone said during the weekend, last weekend during the championship, that they were looking at the rosters and said, why does every team now have a girl from California? And I think that's something that Josh Stokes might have started here and kind of rubbed off on the other coaches, and now in order to beat SVC, now we need California players. Maybe that's not exactly how it is, but they've had to go out and find those kind of players that can match our kind of players. And you see the Newberries, who went to the semifinals and lost to Regis in a tough 5-setter. They're a very young team, and that's a team that everyone's going to have their eye on in the following years.
Yeah.
So you kind of see this trend throughout the conference that it's getting better in the volleyball. The whole product as whole from the top to the bottom of the league is getting better, and it's just going to make for more exciting volleyball down the road.
There's no doubt about that, and I know the NECC representative, the athletic director that oversees volleyball, Jessica Gould of Newberry, said that in her closing remarks of the award ceremony. She said this was the best quality volleyball of all 3 years that it's been at Southern Vermont. And I think you're exactly right. First of all, touching on the point, Southern Vermont has now become the culture. The entire program has the culture of we should win it. I think these girls all felt that when they got to the championship. They said, we should win this weekend. We're the 1 seed. We should take care of business. And they did that. And it's easy to do it with a team. You bring in a couple girls, maybe freshmen that have 4-year success, or you bring a couple junior college girls in, or men, whatever sport you're talking about, and they have success for 2 years. Can you do it as a program? And when you win that third one, after Jessica Alvarez graduated, after Danielle Heelis graduated, and they're no longer around, now you're a program. Now Deion Jones and his team has made this place a program that a lot of people are going to look at and say, Southern Vermont, 3 years in the NCAA tournament, that's really impressive.
And you're absolutely right. Coach Jones was hired late in the summer, didn't really have a chance to recruit that much and bring in, players that he's looking for. And their team was very limited in terms of size, roster size. Not huge numbers, not a deep bench, if you will. But they were still able to work together, improve upon their own skills individually as well as a team, and come together at the right time, like we mentioned. And again, they're losing 3 young ladies to graduation or eligibility after this season, but they still have a handful that were a big part of this group and had a big impact in the success and winning the championship. They're going to come back hungry to defend that title, and that he's going to, he being Coach Jones, is going to do some recruiting, be able to bring in some more players, and they should have a target on their back again next year. Again, Newberry's, the Regises, they have some pretty young groups and some young teams, but I think that we should, for all intents and purposes, still be the team to beat. Someone has to beat the best to be the best, correct? Someone has to beat us in those semifinal and championship rounds in order to take the cup out of the Mountaineer Athletic Center. And I think the teams are getting frustrated that they have to travel to Southern Vermont every November in order to play in these semifinal and championship rounds. But hey, we got the number 1 seed. We played the best. So until someone does that, it's going to stay up here. And we'll see.
Yeah, and they should enjoy it because we put on one heck of a tournament, I'll tell you that much.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is, I think we are, I don't want to get ahead here too much, but when you return the NECC Player of the Year, I think we are still the number 1 team going into next year, and I'll let you touch base here on, we earned some all-conference honors in volleyball. So, again, like you said, overall good year. Season's not over, though. We got Williams on Friday for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I'm going to rip through some accolades real quickly here. Senior Carrie Balthazar was named the tournament MVP for her performance over the weekend. Just a great all-around effort on all sides of the ball, whether it was defensive, offensive, or even serving. And again, we talked about that experience that she possessed coming into the tournament, where she was a starter on the team last year, and she was comfortable. She knew what she was doing, and she didn't let the pressure really seep into her head. So she also got NECC Player of the Week last week for that. She was also named to the All-NECC second team on a votes by coaches around the league. Sophomore setter Shalani Calliope and junior Marissa Flores were also named honorable mentions. And as you said, junior Jessica Delgado was named the NECC Player of the Year, while also being placed on the first team all-conference. So congratulations to Jessica. She was very deserving of it. I believe she was Player of the Week 2 or 3 times throughout the season. Just a tremendous year. 3rd year that a Southern Vermont player has been Player of the Year. 3rd year that a Southern Vermont player named Jessica has been Player of the Year. And I guess it helps when you have a Jessica Alvarez to be your assistant coach. So that rubs off. But like you mentioned, coming back next year for her senior year, we expect the same, if not better. And we look at Alvarez's numbers last year. One of the things that her and Danielle Heelis did very well in their senior performance was limiting those hitting errors, which I think something Delgado can work on and get better as she moves along. But time will tell. And again, next year is next year. We still got this year to finish up on, like you mentioned, NCAAs. And I did mention that Williams match a few weeks ago prior to the conference tournament. They put that Williams game aside in that 3-0 loss away. Now it's time to bring that back out of the woodwork and say, all right, what did we do right? What did we do wrong against the East? Williams College, winning the NECC, was afforded the number 1 seed, therefore being able to host this weekend's regional. Southern Vermont takes the 8th seed. They're going to go down. It's nice that they get to go right down the road, 20-minute drive, compared to the 4 or 5 hour drives to upstate New York that they've had over the last couple of years. And in talking with Coach Jones, he's displaying some confidence, and he thinks that they're going to have a much better match against Williams this time around than they did a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I've talked to him as well, and you're exactly right. He does have a lot of belief in this team, and he should. I mean, this team is playing really good volleyball right now, and I think that's fair. I'm going to be honest. Williams is a really good team. They won the NECC. That's one of the most respected conferences in the New England region. So they're going to be good. But I don't think that Southern Vermont needs to go into this game thinking that they don't have a chance, because I do believe if they play well, you never know what's going to happen. It is the tournament, and as they say, on any given day, anything can happen.
Absolutely, and I think, a couple weeks off here, the New England Collegiate Conference was kind of in a situation different than other conferences around the country where they finished up a week earlier. So the Mountaineers have had now essentially 2 weeks off prior to the NCAAs to rest up, prepare, get focused, catch up on sleep or homework or whatever they needed to. And maybe that'll be an advantage, maybe it'll be a disadvantage, we'll see. But again, 8 p.m. on Friday night, they go down the road and play Williams in the 4th match of that first round regional action. And again, Williams, as you mentioned, very strong team. What are the Mountaineers going to need to do in order to tip the Eeps?
I think, the number one thing is they have to limit their errors. When you play against a team that has done as well as Williams has, you cannot make mistakes. You got to serve the ball. You can't serve the ball in the net. You got to at least hit the ball. Make them play defense. And I think as far as that goes, if they can do that, we'll see what happens. But Williams is probably going to be a little bit taller, as you mentioned. We're not the tallest team. But at the same time, we do play a little bit of good defense. We do pass the ball pretty decently. And if we can get the ball to, Jessica or Carrie or Marissa, someone on the outside, hey, you never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. And once again, that match is at 8 p.m. down at Williams College, Chandler Gymnasium. That's Friday night. Just to give you a heads up, that ticket sales are going to be going on $6 for adults, $4 for senior citizens, $4 for students, and $3 for children 12 years or younger. And with that being so close, you can expect a large contingency of Mountaineer fans to be down there.
Hope so.
We do hope so. It's going to be interesting to see the split. There's going to be decisions that need to be made by students, faculty, and staff, and just fans in general of the college. Because Friday night also has the Williams College tip-off tournament. Men's basketball every year starts their season at Williams versus Williams. It's usually that Friday night, and usually a large crowd goes down. Unfortunately, and this has been a real fun thing to deal with over the last 24, 30 hours here, is that now basketball needs to be moved because of volleyball. So, men's basketball will be playing the Williams College tournament, tip-off tournament, against Williams College at Mass College of Liberal Arts over in North Adams, Massachusetts. You can find directions on svcathletics.com to that venue. So, again, interesting to see how many Williams fans will be there. Will it really be a home game for them? How many SVC fans will be there? Usually we pack Chandler Gymnasium, and we can really get that place hopping and turn it into more of a neutral environment instead of a home game for Williams. I guess we'll find out who the basketball fans and who the volleyball fans are from both colleges, and I expect there to be a good handful at both sites for both teams.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think being here now as a student and as a staff member, the Williams Tip-Off Tournament is always that event that, you plan for and you say, hey, we're going to go down there and, like you said, we're going to try to make it, a neutral site, and it's just always the basketball tip-off. It's what you really want, what you really look forward to. But at the same time, it's the NCAA tournament, so you got to pick and choose. Maybe some people will go to the volleyball game. Hopefully, we'll get a win. Shoot over to MCLA and see the second half of our men's basketball game at Williams, or either way, hopefully both gyms are packed with Southern Vermont College fans.
Yeah, for those of you who aren't familiar, Mass College of Liberal Arts is really right down the road, so you can do both, maybe split, do half and half if you're looking to do that. If you want to catch both, contests, that's certainly doable. However, both will be live broadcast streamed online. You can find the links for those at the respective schedule pages for each team. So again, the men play Williams College at 8 p.m. on Friday, and then in the Classic Style Tournament, they will play the University of Rutgers Newark at 1 p.m. on Saturday, also at MCLA. The men were picked 8th out of the 9 teams in the preseason poll. Dave, I know as a coach you especially love these things. I think any coach in college athletics does. And I say that half jokingly. One, because who knows what's going to go on. It's with the college or professional sports, you can make your predictions in the preseason. How many people predicted the Kansas City Chiefs to be sitting undefeated at this point in the National Football League season? So it's something fun. It could be bulletin board fodder, if you will. So what does that 8th place really say? Who knows? Who really gives it that much credence?
Yeah, I think it's more of a fan thing. It's less of a coaching thing. You all put something in. Every coach is hiding something. Every coach is bragging about something. But at the end of the day, you don't get championship rings for being picked first, and you don't not make the playoffs because you were picked last. So it's great for the athletes, great for the fans, but from the coach in me says, great, let's play the game.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the men start the season this weekend, once again, at Reverse Williams at MCLA on Friday, and then they take on Rutgers Newark on Saturday. They start the conference schedule before the Christmas break this year with a visit to Elms College on December 3rd at 8 p.m. And then they also go back into their non-conference schedule, which is a very tough schedule that I know Coach Engelstad mentioned to me yesterday. He hopes to use pretty much to prepare for the conference. He wants to win those non-conference games, obviously, but as long as they get something out of it and they can utilize it to help play their best basketball come December 3rd / after the break is really what they're looking for.
Yeah, I think, tipping off against a top 5 team in the country, you're probably going to better prepare yourself for, conference play. So absolutely, like you said, they need to get something out of it. Hopefully they will. A couple other non-conference games in between then and our conference schedule starting up. So we'll see where it goes.
And from the men's, we'll go over to the women's hoop side of things. They also start this weekend. Also picked to finish 8th in the conference preseason poll. They open up at the Curry College tournament this weekend. They play Curry College Friday at 7:30. If they win, this is a tournament-style tournament, as in you win, you play in a championship game, whereas the Williams is just, you're playing this time, we'll figure out who's the quote-unquote champion afterwards. So the women Mountaineers, if they win on Friday, they play at 3 p.m. on Saturday. If they lose on Friday, they play at 1 p.m. on Saturday. You'll be able to find live stats links for those contests on the women's basketball schedule page on svcathletics.com. Again, women picked to finish 8th in the conference. What does that really say? Let's not worry about it. Very young group coming in for Coach Quinn. Returning, I believe it's 7 players from last year. He had 8 freshmen last year. They're all sophomores now. Brought in 7 new freshmen. So same old as last year, just a little bit older, if you will. That young team needs to grow together and work together in order to beat the Regises of the world, who was picked number 1.
Yeah, this team, and we touched on it all year last year, they're young. Now, they have the experience. Okay, you're young, you're a sophomore, but you have experience. You know, a lot of teams look at sophomores, they say, oh, they don't have the experience. This team does. You know, they return Conference Rookie of the Year, Amber Flagg, who's a very, very good player. A couple other really good sophomores, as you mentioned, that'll come back. So I think it'll be fun. Curry's obviously a pretty good team in the Commonwealth Coast Conference, so that'll be a tough matchup. But at the same time, again, it's going to prepare you for conference play, and hopefully those non-conferences are good preparation down the road.
Exactly, and as you mentioned and alluded to, very tough competition this weekend. It's a really good way to start the season and see where you're at, see what you need to focus on moving forward throughout the next couple weeks before the women open up at Elms on December 3rd. And actually they have 2 more conference games before the break. They visit Daniel Webster and then see Regis, the defending champion, come in December 7th. So they have 3 conference games in that week-long stretch before the break. So you need to utilize these first 5 games to really, again, as we mentioned with the men, start clicking, start getting everything rolling to be able to be playing your best come conference time.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. I feel like a week ago we were starting the fall seasons off, and now all of a sudden we're in the winter season. So those 5 games are going to go by, you know, in the snap of a finger, and all of a sudden you're going to be in the conference games, and those go Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I believe, you know, every single week pretty much. So you got to prepare really quickly, and hopefully this month in between Midnight Madness and your first game is good preparation. Let's tip off.
Let's do it. Let's good luck to the men and the women this weekend. And as we mentioned, a couple weeks of non-conference play before they start the NECC schedule, and we will obviously keep you up to date on what is progressing there. As you mentioned, seems like the fall sports were just starting and now they're finishing. And men's and women's cross country absolutely finishing their schedule this weekend with the NCAA Regional Championship. The men are bringing 6 participants, the women are bringing 2 up to the University of Southern Maine, which is it's going to take place at a course off campus in Gorham, Maine. The women start the 6K at 11, the men at 12. The men, it's an 8K like they're used to. The women do an extra kilometer. Don't ask me why that is. Maybe you know.
I have no clue.
All right, I have no idea. They usually run a 5K. This weekend they run a 6K. It's going to be very cold. I know, talking to one of the women who is going up, Skylar McGuire, a name that is very popular on this program. She was running around during practice, and she said, it's cold. And I said, yeah, it's going to be colder in Maine, yeah, so it's good practice.
You're exactly right. I know we touched on this on our last show as well, but all 8 participants that are going to go, it's great experience. It's something that I know when we went to school here, being alums of the school, this event never happened for our cross-country runners, or not that I remember. I think this is something that Maria Stuber started, and now Coach Newton is continuing it and bringing her athletes to the regionals. It's an experience that they're always going to have. They're going to be able to compete against some of the best runners in the country, and hey, go out there and give it all you got and see where you finish. And like you said, it's one last race. Who knows? Maybe you win the thing, and I don't know, the NCAA championships or something like that. You never know.
Yeah, it should be a really huge field on both sides. And just that feeling I think the runners get, and they step up to the line surrounded by 150 other participants. You just get, all that adrenaline flowing. And as you mentioned, it's a really great experience for all of them to be able to go up there and see what it's like, and hopefully kind of give them that extra little fight, that that push. We want to be here and be competing every year. So what do we have to do? What do we have to bring home to be able to do that next year and keep that kind of tradition going with these 2 programs? And again, good luck to them. I'm sure they'll do great. It'll be interesting to see how Herson Canta does, coming off of the NECC Championship, during which he was hurt and kind of had a disappointing race, I would believe. And maybe he has a bit of a chip on his shoulder to come back and say, that wasn't the runner I am, this is the runner I am.
Yeah, you're exactly right. What can you bring home from it? And again, good luck to all these runners. They're all quality runners, have had good seasons, and what a way to end their season than to be at the NCAA Regional Championship.
So good luck to the men and women Mountaineers up at the University of Southern Maine this weekend. And again, bundle up because I'm sure it will be a cold one. Before we wrap up here on SVC Sports Weekly, we're going to go back to a couple more conference honors real quickly. The all-conference teams, of course, named last week. Men's soccer saw 2 players land on those squads. Senior Pierre Massena made his 3rd All-NECC first team. So congratulations to Pierre, just absolutely capping off, a great career here at Southern Vermont. And junior Eric Argueta was named an honorable mention for the 2nd straight year. I think we kind of all saw those 2 coming. Both had status quo years, if you will, for them. You expect them to play as well as they did and therefore lead to these all-conference honors.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Pierre, great career. Argueta, it's what you expect now. He's been here a couple of years. You know that you're going to get quality play out of him. But I think, again, coming back for next year with a chip on his shoulder, Argueta can bring this team, now sort of it's his team. It's been Pierre's team. Now Argueta is going to be that senior leadership guy. He's got to step up and take this team by the reins and get them back to the playoffs and get this program back to where it was a few years ago in the NECC Championship game.
And it's a great point. We talked about Pierre's senior day and losing him and Derek Snow, and now Argueta and Ruben Oliveras are going to really have to step up and account for some of those goals and assists that were lost, as well as the defensive end that Pierre helped out tremendously on. And I think Coach Hutchins is optimistic about his squad next year and the ability to bring in a couple other guys to fill in those missing pieces to be able to take the team and get them back to the conference tournament and not only get there but able to do something once you get to those postseason matches.
Yeah, exactly. This program isn't too far removed from being there in back-to-back years of championship games, and I don't think talent-wise they're too far off either. They just got to put things together, and I know Coach Hutchins is working really hard on the recruiting trail right now. Since his season's been over, so I'm sure he'll be able to bring in some quality players and get this program back to where it was in the NECC.
And once again, congratulations to Pierre and Eric, as well as the 4 members of the women's soccer team who also landed themselves on the All-New England Collegiate Conference squads. We had Caitlin Forant, senior Caitlin Forant, making the All-NECC first team again. Also had senior midfielder Jocelyn Ortega and defender Erica Garay, as well as junior Michelle Flores. So you look at the 4 that made it, 3 of them unfortunately are seniors. We talked about that core that Coach Zauzig is going to be losing going into next year. Definitely some big shoes to fill. But let's look at next year later. Let's talk about the successes of these 4 ladies. Caitlin coming back and missing preseason, being able to work athletics around her academics and miss a lot of practices and games because of that. Still making a name for herself and having her be that target that opposing coaches look at and say, why isn't she marked? Why doesn't she have 2 or 3 defenders on her? And garnering that respect, I think the first team is well warranted. Yeah,
being around the program a little bit this year and being on the sideline, so many times you're hearing an opposing coach, guard number 4, mark number 4, or whatever it is. So, but again, 3 great seniors, 3 seniors that have helped this program continually improve, and also great to have Michelle Flores get a little bit of honors from the NECC, and she'll return for next year.
And we also mentioned Jocelyn Ortega. She also landed a first team selection after being a second team honoree last year, and defender Erica Garay, both of those being captains for the team. Garay gets to the first team. She didn't make any last year. It's really hard for a defender to get onto those all conference teams. It's really a matter of how much did the coach notice you when you played against them. So that's great to see Garay and Michelle Flores to be named to those teams. Flores being listed as an All-NECC second team honoree. And you could see that. The team posted a 1.9 something goals against average for the season, and both Garay and Flores were a large part of that in not letting the ball get deep to allow many offensive chances for their opposition. So once again, congratulations to those 4 ladies on the women's soccer team, 2 men on the men's soccer team, and 4 ladies on the women's volleyball team. I think overall, and we still have cross country and volleyball to finish up this weekend, but a fairly successful fall season for those 5 sports, both in terms of wins and losses, as well as personal accolades, whether it was weekly honors or end of the year honors. And again, just putting that right foot forward and being able to put yourself in a position to move forward as a program instead of the alternative. And I know Mountaineer fans are excited to see what will happen from this year going forward, and we will see, time will tell. But it's time for winter sports, so we will be touching on those those opening tournaments next weekend here on SVC Sports Weekly, as well as the women's volleyball regional tournament and men's and women's cross country. So we hope to catch you then. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll get you next time on SVC Sports Weekly. And always, go Mountaineers!